And I was thinking and dreaming, where am I going? Who is going to stay with me? What will life be like? It was all of these unknown questions, because we had no relatives. I had no idea where we were going, what was going to happen, and all of these thoughts. And they were all positive thoughts. I mean, what could be bad? I'd already experienced everything else that was bad. So I was thinking of nothing but good things.
Sam, you always emerged victorious. Now you're in a new country. How do you begin?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, the first thing that happened, I was in New York. And they took a group of us kids to show us New York City. And we went on the subway system. And it was so much fun, the tall buildings, the light, and we were switching subways from one to another. I don't know what happened, I'm looking up or something like that, but my train left.
Oh.
and with all the other people, and I'm left alone on this thing. Oh my gosh, I didn't know what to do. I got into the next train, and I got off at the next place, looked around, nobody was. I kept doing it. It was terrible. And then I couldn't speak English, and I didn't have an address. Didn't know where, who, what. And didn't even have any money. It was such a terrible thing. I finally got off the train. It was on the top, and I walked down. I did know one thing, that wherever I stayed, it was a street perpendicular to the train. And I'd walk a while, and I would stop somebody and say, "Sprechen Sie Deutsch?" No, I don't speak English. And kept going. I didn't run across anybody that could even speak the language. And it was getting dark, and I was really scared. You know, I kept walking and walking, and suddenly I found the street. and I took a left. I ended up, I went in there. Nobody knew that I was gone. It was terrible. So that was the first thing that happened to me in America. I stayed in New York maybe a couple of weeks. My sister Sarah and I were put on a train to go to Chicago. Apparently the Jewish Children's Bureau, or HIAS, Hebrew Immigration Authority, HIAS, were in charge. And they took over there, and they put us in Chicago in a foster home. I still remember the street there, 7730 Marquez Street. I know the streets of every place I've ever been to, my hometown in Poland, and Okurna 25 when I was a little kid in Poland, and all of them. But anyway, we ended up in a foster home, and they put us into 6th grade and couldn't speak English. And what the Jewish Children's Bureau was doing is looking for a home that would adopt Sarah and me. Well, they looked, they had interviews, people had interviews with us, but nobody would want to take 2 children that were Holocaust survivors, and I can understand why. So they decided to split us up, Sarah and me, which it wasn't easy. They were able to find a home for me in Northbrook, Illinois. Remember, my name was Shlomek Zheznik, and on April 10th, 1948, I ended up in Northbrook, where I was adopted and became Sam Harris. There were several times we visited together, my new mother-to-be, and I had a new sister, Sue, and so on. But I loved the place where I was adopted in Northbrook, Illinois.
And you suddenly had a room of your own after having lived in barracks, in concentration camps, hiding in them, Now you had a room of your own.
It was heaven. I remember my mother-to-be picked me up. She was in a Buick. She was wearing white gloves in those days, and she had her little daughter who was 5 years younger than me, Susan, and I couldn't really communicate with them. I think we stopped on the way to get something to eat, and I didn't know what to order because I didn't know anything. So when they said something, I would always say yes, 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 and whatever they gave me, I ate. And we went up this little lane in Northbrook. We drove up, and it was full of woods, and I liked that. It was beautiful. In April, the daffodils started to grow, and we lived on an acre of land. The woods, the forest preserve was touching our place, and we walked around, and it was really, really beautiful. Then my father-to-be drove home. He just came in from work for lunch, and he showed me around. I tried to impress him. I told him I would be a doctor. That made him happy because he was a doctor. So I had suddenly my own home, my new mother, my new sister, and they had a little dog, a Cocker Spaniel by name of Jimmy, and Jimmy liked me. It became beautiful. Of course, they put me to school and all of that.
And Sarah, where did she go? What
Sarah
happened?
stayed for a while until they found a home for her, and it was a perfect fit for her.
And you could see each other.
We could see each other, but not very often. They were told that to live a more normal life, that it would be better not to get together that often. So maybe every 3, 4, 5, 6 months we would get together.
Okay. And that was to live a normal life, and that's what you wanted to do.
My mother, my new mother, had written to the social workers that Sam gave me his suitcases and said he never wants to look at them again. I wanted to just be like all other American boys. I didn't want anything to do with the past. I put a cement block on purpose around me. I didn't want to talk about the Holocaust. I didn't want to see anybody about the Holocaust. That was it, period. And that's pretty much the way it was. I didn't talk to my parents about the Holocaust, my sister, my classmates, nobody.
Now you'd invented another you.
I couldn't talk about Sammy. The only way I could even think about it later is not as Sam Harris, but the little boy over there. I couldn't say that's me.
Yes.
Even now when I talk, it would be better for me to say that little boy, because that couldn't have happened to me and still make it and live here now.
And this is how you went through college, through high school, through college.
I went through high school that way. I went through college that way. I went through work that way. I went through my whole life that way. When I had my 50th reunion in high school, I was on the committee, and somebody said, Sam, oh, do they have they were talking, they have a good department where they help people with Spanish-speaking people. I said, oh, I wish they had that when I was there. What do you mean? And when I told them, they didn't know about it. They said, how could I be so dumb? No, we were such close friends and not know anything about you. I eventually went over to see a girl I used to date for 3 years, and I asked her, did you know anything about me? No, except that your mother told my mother that you were born in Europe. And that was it. I would go to a party, a Green Acres Country Club. That was a fancy country club. Before we got a big dance, you know, you get invited by a girl to go for dinner, all dressed up in tuxedos. It was one of those kind of schools. It was a rich area. And we were sitting around the table, round table, about 10 of us. And I guess the kids were looking for something to talk about, and so I was a sophomore in high school at the time. Well, what camp did you go to? I went to Camp McCodger. What camp did you go to? And it came to me. I said, I went to concentration camp.